In terms of the operation, the viewer that has written in there talks about the misinformation. There is a lot of misinformation. It's always confusing in these situations. And all we can do is try to attribute what claims are coming out to whoever is making those claims. So be it the Russian government, the Ukrainian government, or indeed the British Ministry of Defence. And I'm finding this quite helpful, actually. The MOD here in the UK have started putting out an intelligence analysis of the situation that they see on the ground, which I think from our point of view, it strikes me as being one of the more credible routes to look into what's going on. They clearly have intelligence assets on the ground. They have satellite imagery. They are in contact with those forces, of course, of the Ukrainian armed services involved in the fighting as well. Now, what they say is that Vladimir Putin's forces have not made the kind of progress that they would have hoped to make. Their day one objectives, according to James Heapy, the Armed Forces Minister yesterday, were not met. And that even today, any attempts to take over Ukrainian cities for the most part have not been met. We are hearing about some very intense fighting in Kharkiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine. 1.5 million people in northeastern Ukraine. It's only about 20 miles or so from the Russian border. There has been intense shelling and rocket fire in and around that city in the last couple of days. Now we are getting credible reports of Russian tanks on the ground in the city, engaged in street-to-street fighting with the Ukrainian armed forces and local militia there. So very worrying situation there.
And I think we talked about this on Friday, Mark. The social media element to all of this is really important, isn't it? We're seeing a lot of videos coming out from the Ukrainian side, some from the Russian side, and people should be careful about some of that, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be careful with the imagery that we're showing and waiting until you get legitimate and credible news organisations like Reuters or Associated Press verifying images and putting them out. We'll take it from there. I'm not saying we're not taking any imagery from social media. If we can verify it ourselves, we'll try to do that. But the fact is there has been some images that are circulating purporting to show fighting and incidents of very worrying significance that are actually taken from previous conflicts some years ago. So we just have to be very careful on that. It is no doubt, though, there is no doubt that the situation there is very, very difficult on the ground. There is significant incursions from Russian forces in various parts of Ukraine. There has been an air bombardment from Russia as well, involving missiles, aircraft, and shelling from troops on the ground into areas that contain populations. Now, Russia say that they are not deliberately targeting residential areas, but we've seen imagery verified that's come out that shows residential areas that have been struck. It's always a risk when you are involved in fighting in urban centres, then there is always a risk that residential areas are going to get struck like this.